Well, good morning. I'm Bill Griffith, and this is oil painting for fun, relaxing, and just creating your masterpiece. Today, this is part 5. In part 4, we kind of laid out our canvas and talked a little bit about sketching and composition to kind of get it down to where you can start painting. Blocking is really the first step where you start establishing your tones. Which are your darks and lights, and kind of get you further oriented into your painting before you start laying down colors and working on that masterpiece. What I'm doing today, and I'm going to turn the camera a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm using the same photograph that we used in part 4, and basically it's just a mortar and pestle on a table with a boar or pig skull. Only reason I chose this, it has lots of dark and light tones, and it makes a good little still life to work off of. Down below is where we ended up in part 4, basically sketching it out on the canvas. One thing you'll probably notice if you have watched part 4 is the background looks darker. I have kind of put a little burnt sienna wash over it. That was one of the things I told you to do, is kind of look at your canvas and have some thoughts, and if you need to change it. In this particular case, I did. But all it is a real light layer of burnt sienna mixed with linseed oil and wiped down. My palette today is going to be a very simple palette again, and basically it's just titanium white, burnt sienna, and ultramarine blue. Now, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mixed together make a nice dark tone, almost a black if you put enough ultramarine blue into it. There are other combinations you can come up with, or you could use ivory black if you want to. But what I want to do is set up a little table here. So first thing I'm going to do is try to avoid putting your brush from one paint into the next paint, that kind of thing, because you'll muddy up your colors and it won't be what you want later. So what I would suggest is you also get yourself a little palette knife, or just a kitchen knife will be fine if you really don't want to spend the money on it. But what it is you basically can take a little bit of, in this case, I'm taking a little bit of titanium white, putting it down, and I'm going to add a little bit of I want to make sure I always wipe these things down so I don't come move paint around, is take a little bit of my ultramarine blue and reach up and grab myself some of this burnt sienna, and I'm going to mix the two together real good, and notice it's getting real dark and almost a black. If I added more blue to it, it would be a black, but I like to leave it a little hot today. I'm going to leave a little bit of that red tone showing through. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this, put it in the middle, and add a little white to it, and kind of create my middle tone. See, it's kind of a brown. I want it a little darker than that, so I'm going to take a little of that again, move it over, and notice the tone's dark, kind of a mid-tone, and it's going down. And in nature, very rarely do you come across pure white, so you don't want to use pure white in your colors. And what I'm going to do here is take a little of that, mix it, and that gives me another tone going down. So I got a dark, kind of a lighter tone, still lighter, and just with a dirty palette knife here, I create probably my last little tone. Not pure white. It's got a little bit of the brown tone to it, so I've got 4 tones sitting right there. So I sit there and look at my little photograph up here, and there's a little trick called squinting, where you just basically squint your eyes. And one of the big things you don't want to ever do is squint and look at your painting, because then it kind of distorts what you're putting down. Only your photograph, or if you're outside, like it's called alla prima, where you're outside doing landscapings or something, you can squint and kind of identify your darks. And so going back, I'm going to look at this photograph, and obviously without squinting, my background is the darkest. And then my shadows seem to be right up there close, but they're a little lighter. And then I've got this kind of a third tone that's your table, and then obviously the white of the skull. So I'm going to start with my dark. And again, the paint brush is held down on the end. There's not a whole lot of care taken, so to speak. What you want to do is just get the color down. So I'm just going to start with that dark, and I'm just going to put it in around the back of my skull. This further identifies the location of that skull and gives me a nice contrast that I can look at as I start developing the painting. So I'm just going around. All over around the skull. I'm using linseed oil, by the way, there to thin it up a little bit. Like I said, I prefer linseed oil. They do make things that dry faster, like there's one called Liquid that you can use that the paint will dry overnight. So there's my big dark background that I'm setting there. That's fine. It really brings that skull into focus. And then what I want to do is go my next tone. And even though it's dark, it's not quite as dark as this outside background. So I'm going to go down one and do basically, and that's too light. So I'm going to add a little bit of my dark, kind of make another tone in here to create the shadow on this mortar. Okay, so now I'm kind of there. The light's coming down through this way, so on the inside, you're going to have a shadow on the inside of the mortar. It's got a little bit of blue tone to it. That is that ultramarine coming through. If I'm not happy with it, I can add a little bit of the burnt sienna, bring it up dark. I want to, again, kind of keep it up, and now I can go ahead and darken it up if I want to. Again, you're the artist. You can do whatever you want to your painting. You're just kind of laying it out. Shadows, I can do my shadows. Obviously, the light's coming this direction, so my shadow's going to come right down through here. But I do notice that this thing, the mortar and pestle, is casting the shadow up on that skull and down the edge. So my initial sketch wasn't quite accurate, so it needs to come across like this. Kind of get that shadow going that direction. And it obviously fades out because of all the other light it's called ambient light that's around the room. And there's a little bit of a cast shadow on the bottom of the skull. Again, that's all I'm doing. I'm just blocking. Now, next thing I want to do maybe is take even a lighter tone. In this case, I'm going to hit some of the places like the top of the skull. Very interesting colors in this thing. I'm excited about what this is going to potentially turn out looking like. I think I'm going to reinforce this gray a little bit down here. And then I'm going to do the nasal process down on this end. And it does get dark up in that corner, so I think I'll take a little bit of that dark and put it up in here like that. Okay. And then right here, the bone that comes out that supports your, basically your eyebrow and all that, cheekbone, comes out here, and it's got its own little shadow because it does come out and the light's coming in. So this side of it will be dark. So I'm going to come out here, and there's my cheekbone that's showing up in there. And then I've got my orbital area where the eyeball's going to, or where it was. And so let me see, it looks like I'm getting pretty good on my tones, my darker tones. And then in the next step I want to do is kind of look at the lighter areas. Again, I want to avoid pure white. Again, it's not that common. So I'm going to go around this little top of the skull right here. And notice it's really bright. And why is it bright? Because the sunlight, the spotlight's coming right down through here. So I'm going to do the back side of this skull. And I'm probably doing more detail than I need to right now, just kind of following it down. Actually, there's a little piece of that cheekbone sticking out here, but it's not quite as bright. And then the lower part of the jaw comes down through here. So notice I'm not sitting here really taking my time because I don't want to. I'm in a kind of I want to get it down while it's still fresh and I can see what's going on, and then I can come back and fix any areas that I think I need to fix later. And so that's blocking. I've just basically blocked out the skull, darks, lights, midtones. I need to show some lights on that mortar and pistol. So I've got this little light area. And then on this side facing the light source, it's really bright. It's got a base on it that's sticking out there too, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. So I got most of the important things out. Now the only thing I don't have is the base here, and it's kind of a mid-tone. So I'm gonna come back through here and just kind of fill in some of this, just so I'm not working on white canvas or something that is so different from the tone of the original painting that it just doesn't look right. So I'm down through here, kind of laid it all out. I got my shadows kind of set down, and I'm ready to stop, give it a little bit of time, think about it like I did last time, like we did after our sketch. And then if you're not happy with it, you can certainly have the opportunity to come back and take a look, do some changes on it. Again, like I said on previous, practice this stuff. Get you several of these little cheap canvases and just keep cranking them out until they begin to kind of pop out of the page at you and you say, man, I like that. And you'll see that sooner or later, we're going to get to the point that you're creating something that's really looking nice. As you see, I'm kind of piddling with it, and you will too, because you'll keep looking at the thing and you'll say, I need to brighten that thing up. So I'm doing a little of that. And I like this little process over here, over the skull, over the eye socket that kind of comes down through here. Kind of adds further details and excitement to my painting. So keep that up, keep doing it, and when you're happy with it, then next time in our next video, we will come back and start putting a little bit of color in it, and then you are actually creating something really neat. Again, practice, practice, practice. I enjoyed having you here today. And if you like this video, please click on the like button down below. And if you want to keep up with the series, subscribe. And as said several times, we start very basic and we're working through the process. And hopefully by the end of the full series, we're going to be painting complete paintings and you're going to be very happy with what you're doing. You all have a very good day, and God bless all of you.